Greetings. I'm Suzanne Titkemeyer, No Longer Quivering. Now I'm writing a book called How Not to Move to Costa Rica, all about the things you need to know when you move here that aren't covered in many of the other books. I'm going to start today by talking about rentals. I was thinking about this last night while I was laying in bed. There are some things to keep in mind if you're going to rent a place here, if you're going to rent an apartment or a house or whatever. There's a lot of things to keep in mind and things. First of all, let me warn you about the rental markets. Well, not the rental markets, the realtors here. Realtors in Costa Rica do not have to have a license or training. Anybody can hang up their shingle and say that they are a realtor in Costa Rica. Unlike the US, where you must pass your state real estate exam and you must pass the federal one. There are two different exams in the US that you have to pass with a decent grade. Sides are going to try it out. Now, there are going to be some places that handle rentals. There are some real estate agents who do, but most of them don't. In my experience here, the rental agencies are few and far between. One of our early trips to Costa Rica, we spent an afternoon with a realtor to ask about house rentals. We wanted a house or an apartment in the $500 to $1,000 range. Somewhere in there was our object. Well, what happened was 3.5 hours of him wasting our last afternoon in Tamarindo showing us properties for sale between 500,000 and 1,500,000. He had somehow decided that was our range and that's what we were going to spend, and there was no rentals. He said he had no rentals, he knew of no rentals, and checked back in May. We didn't use this guy. And we have never used this guy again because he tried to pull the gringo shuffle that very first time. There are lots of rentals here. And what the rentals run really determines upon location, 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 just like in the States. Say you want to come to Tamarindo. Okay, there are places to rent here as low as $400 a month. They're few and far between, but they do exist. But know that you are competing against local ticos when you try to go with the little cabinas that are that inexpensive, or the apartments. Okay, and I'm going to tell you about our rental experiences when we first got here. We decided that we would talk to people, so we talked to other Americans, talked to ticos, took a look on Airbnb. Hey, talked to Airbnb. We talked to just about everybody, including a few realtors. And what we determined here is there are a lot of places for rent, a lot of apartments, lots of houses for rent. It just depends upon what your budget is. And like I said, that lower end here is very basic, which is okay. We had a ticker friend that warned us about a house. Well, not warned us. He's told us about a house that was for rent here in Tamarindo, well, near Tamarindo, in a nice family compound that was 7 houses with a gate and a fence, which is important here. You do need to be behind some type of security fence or bars or something because there's a lot of petty thievery. That's the only real crime you're going to run into in Costa Rica is your bike might disappear. You just have to use some common sense. Well, he took us to this apartment, this house. It's a little tiny Tico house, which was fine, 2 bedrooms. We don't need much. We're older. It looked like a crime scene. The furniture was scuffed and had cigarette burns all over it. The kitchen was a sink and a microwave. There wasn't a refrigerator or anything else. There were birds flying into the house or flying in and out of the windows where the windows were cracked. The landlord turned to me and said, "So when can you move in?" Now, this place was less expensive. It was $250, $260 a month. I looked at my husband. I looked at her. I was like, let me think about it. The answer on that one was no. We looked at a ton of places. We looked at these tiny little A-frame houses that were adorable and were very affordable. They were $400 a month. But my husband didn't want stairs. We looked at these brand new apartments, gorgeous. They're still here. They've been sold a couple of times. They're adding on to them. Gorgeous. Marble floors, the whole 9 yards. But $1,100 a month, a little beyond what we were looking to spend. Okay. So, and the other thing is they weren't ready. We needed a place right then because we were living in a day by day cabina that we were paying pretty hefty sum for. The other thing we went to is we went to the apartments in Tamarindo that they say everybody starts at. It's behind Tamarindo Fitness. They were kind of pricey too, but there were a couple of problems that we didn't really want to walk up 4 or 5 flights of stairs every day. Various things. We ended up renting a house from a lady who runs a pile of rental cabinas. She has another house. She has this little tiny house, well, a smaller house. It was about 1,600 square feet. It was on the main road. It was a darling little house. I really loved it. And the whole place was for sale. So my husband and I were talking about maybe we'll buy this place. All the cabinas, the 2 houses on 9 yards. Well, the mistake we made that you should not make is you need a lease. When you have a lease, they cannot raise your rent more than 16%, 15, 16% every so many years or every year. If you don't, you're really at the mercy. We decided we did not want to have a lease because we just didn't know where we were going to end up. If we were even going to end up living in Tamarindo, and so we went with no lease. Things were fine for 4 months. The house is beautiful. I loved it. It had all kinds of American upgrades. It had European upgrades. It was nice. And then the electricity went out. When we lived back in Virginia, our house there, the switch outside between where the electricity comes into your property and the house died. It went bad. And we had to have the town come out and fix that. And that was fine, but it took a couple of days. And the lights kept flickering on and on in the house, and things worked, and some things did not work. It happened at our Tamarindo house. And the landlord said she was not going to fix it because it was going to cost her a ton of money. So we had to live with half rental, half electric in the house. And we had no recourse because we had no lease like the big dummies that we were. So we ended up deciding, let's find some place. The other thing was the landlord raised our rent by $200 a month from $600 to $800 suddenly. And because we didn't have a lease, we were out of luck. So that's what spurred us to start buying a house. The location thing. In Copay, where we were, which is in the Central Valley, you could rent a nice Tico 2 bedroom stucco cottage for around $150 a month. Reasonable, I know, very cheap. Here it's more like 400. But there are bargains to be had. But as I've said before, you have to really hunt around. You have to talk to the locals. If you talk to the Americans, they're just going to run you into another expensive set of gringo places. And that's all well and good if that's what you want. If you really want to live in a place that is luxurious, where there is full time this and that, go for it. It's going to cost you a little more. If you want to live on the economy and live in a Tico type place, it's going to cost you a little less. And then there's like where we were, which is between the two. I miss that house sometimes because that house was nice. It had a granite kitchen. It had a dishwasher, which is unheard of here. You don't see dishwashers very often at all. And so many other things. But I don't miss not having electric. So if you have a lease, it does protect you. But here's what I want to say about that. If you're coming down to live, your best bet is to sign up to get an Airbnb for a couple of months, 2 or 3 months. It's going to be a little more expensive than the average rental, but it gives you the freedom to actually start looking and look for the right place so that you're not stuck trying to find a place in a week like we were, where we were really under the gun. And even considering the apartment with the torn furniture, the cigarette burns, and the birds. You will find some crazy stuff when you go out there and look. And I've got a pile of tales to tell you about when we went house hunting. We bought our house in a week, but we picked it out within a week, I should say. We didn't buy it within a week because it took a full month or so to go through closing. But we only looked for a week. And again, it was the same thing. We had a wide variety of things offered to us, homes that had torn up everything, homes that were way overpriced, beautiful places I would have loved, but I couldn't talk my husband into it because there were scares or some other thing that he was against. And we ended up with the right place. We got a bargain here. And there are bargains to be had, or people will tell you there are not. There are. There are some excellent bargains to be had. Our house, we paid $160,000 for it. It's a house sitting on a large piece of property, and we've got a 12-foot concrete wall going around it. Just the concrete wall alone, if you had to put that in, is about $60,000 to $80,000 for one that size. So we just happen to hit right upon the right thing. I would encourage you to do the Airbnb rental while you're looking for the right thing, whether it's the purchase or um, the rental. And I'm going to talk more next time about what you need to do if you buy, what you need to know if you buy a house here. The only part of the process that I'm not familiar with is getting a loan because we did not take out a Costa Rican property loan. I'm going to try this week to go talk to some friends of mine and find out the details on that because that's the only part of the process that I'm in a mystery about. We bought this place cash, and I understand most people can't do that. So we're going to try to talk about the financing aspect of it. The banks here will finance you, and I don't know what the rates are on that, but they will finance you. It's a process that I've been told it takes a lot longer and it's a lot more invasive. And I can believe that because when we opened our bank account here to do transfers back and forth from the United States to here, we had to prove where our money came from. We had to prove that none of it was drug money, that had shown copies of our tax returns, copies of our bank statements, copies of where the money was, where it came from, all sorts of documents, just to get approved to move the money down here, to have a bank account that would allow us to transfer back and forth. Now, we've got that under control now, but it took some doing. That's why we say when you get here, hire a lawyer and find a place to stay within your budget. And there are things within your budget. It just depends upon where you want to live. Do you want to live on the Caribbean side? You want to live like we are on the Pacific side? You want to live in the mountains? There's every kind of climate, every kind of requirement here. The mountains, it's actually a lot more reasonable. Like I said, where we were in Copa, those houses went for $150 a month. That's unheard of. Anybody can pretty much retire there as long as you have a little Social Security money coming in. Okay, so next time we're going to talk about buying a house here, the challenges of that, and the bargains, the great bargains. See you guys later.